The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor, president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcements for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Ms. Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr.
Thank you, and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after listening to our program. The family of Minister Clara Lee Fort Collier of Vienna, Georgia. The family of Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray of Cordele, Georgia. The family of United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae, Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Bobby Lee Foster of Americus, Georgia. The family of Miss Christine Gulligan Leggett of Byronville, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Essie Mae Henderson Gay of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Glenn Eli Brown of Americus, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for the food, the flowers, the condolences, and all other expressions of sympathy and kindness shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Minister Clara Lee Fort Collier, age 71, of 409 Posey Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Saturday, January 20th at the Phoebe Putnam Memorial Hospital in Albany, Georgia. The funeral service for Minister Clara Lee Fort Collier, age 71, was held Sunday, January 28th in the sanctuary of the Fresh Oil Ministries in Vienna, Georgia. The pastor, Prophet Darrell Lundy, officiated. The eulogy was delivered by Overseer Annie Reynolds. The burial followed at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mr. Frank Collins, Jr. of Buffalo, New York, Mr. Christopher Collins of Vienna, Georgia, Mr. Gregory B. Collins of Syracuse, New York, Mr. Jonathan Collins, Sr., and Miss Shan T. Collins of Vienna, Georgia, Miss Cherie L. Collins and Mr. Willie Collins of Cordele, Georgia, and Miss Dorothy J. Beezer of Tampa, Florida. 15 beloved grandchildren, 10 great-grandchildren, her loving and caring sisters, Miss Gail Seymour and her husband, Mr. Jonathan Seymour, Miss Rosa Mays and her husband, Mr. Larry Mays, and Miss Betty Ford, all of Syracuse, New York, and Miss Gloria Ford of Cordele, Georgia, her beloved aunt, Mrs. Jessie Mae Fuller, and her husband, Deacon Elmo Fuller of Americus, Georgia, her beloved in-law, Miss Diana Black, Miss Donna Collier Jones of Unadilla, Georgia, Mr. Larry Collier and his wife, Mrs. Mary Collier, and Mr. James Collier and her husband and his wife, Mrs. Rutha Collier, and overseer Annie Reynolds and her husband, Elder Leroy Reynolds of Vienna, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends, to include Miss Leslie Lango, Miss Vivian White, Mr. Jerry Sutton Sr. of Vienna, Georgia, Miss Clara McGill, and Dr. Frankie Harmon of Cordele, Georgia, and Miss Betty Nell Thomas of DeSoto, Georgia. Survived Minister Clara Lee Fort Collier, age 71, of 409 Posey Street, Vienna, Georgia. Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray, age 93, of 4047 Pateville Road, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, January 25th at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for beloved church mother, Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray, age 93, was held Sunday, January 28th in the sanctuary of her beloved Davis Chapel CME Church in Arabi, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Ardell Welburn, officiated. Her beloved and devoted son, the Reverend Lorenda Ray, delivered the eulogy. The burial followed at the Little Rock Baptist Church Cemetery in Arabi, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Josephine Knight of Palm Bay, Florida, Mr. Charles Ray Jr. of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Nelson Singleton of Palm Bay, Florida, the Reverend Lorenda Ray and his friend Miss Fanny Pollock of Cordele, Georgia, Mrs. Betty Brown of Jacksonville, Florida, Deacon Godfrey Ray and his wife, Mrs. Brenda Ray of Moultrie, Georgia, Mrs. Marilyn Hopper and her husband, Stuart Alfred Hopper of Cordele, Georgia, Dr. Jennifer Ray of Savannah, Georgia, Deacon Ronnie Ray and his wife, Minister Cheryl Ray, and Mr. Bobby Ray and his wife, Mrs. Tamika Ray of Cordele, Georgia. 26 beloved grandchildren, 46 great-grandchildren, a host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray, beloved church mother, age 93, of 4047 Pateville Road, Cordele, Georgia. Retired United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae Jr., age 65, of 761 North Coney Road, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, January 8th at his residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service with full military honors for retired United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae Jr., age 65, was held Wednesday, January 31st, in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. His pastor, Brother Carl Colbert of the Vienna Church of Christ, officiated. Brother James Leon Hughes, pastor of the Church of Christ at Hilltop, delivered the eulogy. The burial followed at the Gum Creek Baptist Church Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Miss Shaveda McRae and her husband, Mr. Montavious McRae of Austell, Georgia, Mrs. Courtney Green and her husband, Mr. John Green of Tampa, Florida, Miss Erica McRae of Cambridge, England, Miss Astasia McRae of Norfolk, Virginia, 8 beloved grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, a beloved sister, Miss Janice McRae of Augusta, Georgia, 2 beloved aunts, Mrs. Rose Mary Brock and her husband, Mr. James Brock of Decatur, Georgia, and Miss Marion Street of Cordele, Georgia. Many beloved cousins to include Miss Cameron Cunningham of Sumter, South Carolina, and Miss Kimberly Street of Cordele, Georgia, a host of other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Retired United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae Jr., age 65, of 761 North Coney Road, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Bobby Lee Foster, age 59, of 722 Beale Street, Americus, Georgia, died Sunday, January 21st, at the Houston Health Care in Warner Robins, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Bobby Lee Foster, age 59, was held Thursday, February 2nd, graveside at the Old Corinth Baptist Church Cemetery in Leslie, Georgia. The Reverend George F. Muntz, pastor of the Whole Truth International Ministries, officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted wife, Mrs. Betty Foster of Americus, Georgia, his loving and devoted children, Mr. Dontavious Hostin of Perry, Georgia, Mr. Dante Tucker Sr., Mr. Bobby Foster Jr., Miss Latoya Mabel, Miss Natasha Robinson, and Miss Wanakee Robinson, all of Americus, Georgia. His beloved father, Mr. Matthew Lewis Sr. of Americus, Georgia. His loving sisters, Mrs. Ruby Denard, Miss Glenda Foster, Miss Brenda Foster, Miss Xander Thompson, Miss Carolyn Cladd, Miss Mary Taylor, Miss Yvonne Gordon, Miss Janice Jones, Miss Gloria Franklin, Miss Lucille Davis, Miss Janice Davis, Miss Sheila Didell, Miss Catherine Didell, Miss Pamela Didell, and Miss Carolyn Didell. His beloved brothers, Mr. Clifford Thomas of Americus, Georgia, Mr. Eric Foster, Preston, Georgia, Mr. Matthew L. Lewis Jr. and Mr. Clarence Lewis of Americus, Georgia, and Mr. Willie J. Lewis of West Palm Beach, Florida. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Bobby L. Foster, age 59, of 722 Beale Street, Americus, Georgia. Mrs. Christine Gulligan Leggett, age 68, of 425 Davis Street, Byronville, Georgia, died Wednesday, January 24th, at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Christine Gulligan Leggett, age 68, was held Friday, February 2nd, in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Sadie Jackson, pastor of the Bay Point CME Church in Byronville, Georgia, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted husband, Mr. Fletcher R. Leggett Jr. of Byronville, Georgia, Her loving and devoted children, Miss Latanya Williams of Cambridge, New Jersey, Miss Sabra Leggett of Woodbury, New Jersey, Miss Labria Gulledge of Westville, New Jersey, 4 beloved grandchildren, 3 great-grandchildren, her loving and devoted sisters, Miss Beverly McCoy of Ewing, New Jersey, Miss Lorraine Gulledge of Woodbury, New Jersey, Miss Nichelle Gulledge, and Miss Patty Ann Gulledge of Cambridge, New Jersey, Mrs. Nicole Power, Miss Lakeisha Power, and Miss Yolanda Power, all of Trenton, New Jersey. Her beloved brothers, Mr. Steve Wilcock of the United States Army, and Mr. John Gulledge of Raleigh, North Carolina. 6 beloved sisters-in-law, 4 brothers-in-law, a host of nieces, nephews, to include a special nephew, Mr. Reginald Leggett Sr. of Byronville, Georgia, many cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Christine Gulledge Leggett, age 68, of 425 Davis Avenue, Byronville, Georgia. Mrs. Essie Mae Henderson Gay, age 76, of 906 West 20th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Friday, January 19th at a residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Essie Mae Henderson Gay, age 76, was held Saturday, February 3rd, in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Isaac H. Owens, pastor of the Mount Calvary Baptist Church, officiated. The burial followed at the Sunnyside Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Miss Katisha Gay of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Tarana L. Russ of Atlanta, Georgia, and Miss Bernadette Youngblood of Albany, Georgia. Her beloved grandchildren, Miss Chesler Gay, Mr. Ricky Youngblood, Mr. Terrell L. Russ Jr., Miss Latasha Russ, Miss Ronika Holmes, Miss Zara Alumas, and Mr. Lord Williams Jr. Her great-grandchildren, her beloved nieces and nephew, Miss Gwendolyn Henderson, Miss Tamika Nasha White, Miss Eddie Ruth White West, Mr. Donald Ray Henderson, Mr. Courtney White, and Mr. Randy Corbin. 12 beloved grandchildren, a host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Essie Mae Henderson Gay, age 76, of 906 West 20th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Glenn Eli Brown, age 61, of 155 Hosanna Circle, Americus, Georgia, died Monday, January 29th at his residence in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Glenn Eli Brown, age 61, was held Saturday, February 3rd, graveside at the New Zion Baptist Church Cemetery in Cobb, Georgia. Apostle John Lundy officiated. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Miss Brittany Brown, Mr. Travis Jones, all of Americus, Georgia, 5 beloved grandchildren, Miss Taisha Jones, Trayton Hooks, Landon Jones, Jace Jones, and London Jones, all of America's Georgia. His beloved stepchildren, whom he dearly cherished, Miss Alexis Hill, Mr. Joe Hill, Miss Chastity Daniel, Miss Kiara Battle, and Mr. Kedarius Evans. A beloved and devoted sister, missionary Patricia Brown of America's Georgia. His beloved and devoted brothers, Mr. Calvin Brown of Columbus, Georgia, Mr. Chris Allen Brown of Loring, Maryland, Mr. Anthony Wayne Brown of America's Georgia, Mr. Ray Anthony Brown of Cobb, Georgia, and Mr. Jeffrey Malin Brown of America's Georgia. His beloved uncle, Mr. Eddie George Brown of DeSoto, Georgia. Two brothers-in-law, Mr. Henry Bell and his wife, Mrs. Bernadette Bell, and Mr. Cedric Thomas and his wife, Mrs. Miranda Thomas. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Glenn Eli Brown, age 61, 155 Hosanna Circle, Americus, Georgia. Again, the family of Minister Clara Lee Ford Collier of Vienna, Georgia, the family of Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray of Cordele, Georgia, the family of United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae, Jr. of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Bobby Lee Foster of Americus, Georgia, the family of Miss Christine Gulligent Leggett of Byronville, Georgia, the family of Miss S.M.A. Henderson Gay of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Glenn Eli Brown of Americus, Georgia, would like to thank their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams funeral directors serving Cordele and Vienna were in charge of each of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcement. Mother May Frances Harold Maynor, age 98, of 1015 Seven Spring Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 30th, at her residence in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, the Reverend Nelson James Maynor Jr., and his wife, Mrs. Melinda Maynor, Mr. Benny Lee Maynor, and his wife, Mrs. Brenda Maynor, and Mrs. Marilyn Williams of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Ernest Maynor and his wife, Mrs. Lorraine Maynor of Albany, Georgia, Mrs. Eddie Jean Brown and her husband, Mr. Johnny Brown of Cordele, Georgia, and Miss Sarah Ann White of Warner Robins, Georgia. 44 beloved grandchildren, 12 great-grandchildren, a host of great-great-grandchildren, her beloved nephews, Mr. Herman Harold Jackson of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Willie Randolph Harold of Orlando, Florida, and Mr. Freddie Pittman and his wife, Mrs. Bernice Pittman of Cordele, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mother May Francis Harold Maynard, age 98, of 1015 Seven Spring Drive, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother May Francis Harold Maynard, age 98, will be held today, Sunday, February 4th at 1 p.m. in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The Reverend Ivory Joe Corbin will officiate. The eulogy will be delivered by the Reverend Jeff Wilson, pastor of the Odom Grove Baptist Church. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Miss Donna Lynn Collier Jones, age 59, of 301 West Poplar Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 30th at her residence. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mr. Armand R. Bennett and his wife, Mrs. Mahogany Bennett, and Mrs. Angela Lynn Jones Spencer and her husband, Mr. Luther Spencer of Columbus, Georgia. 8 beloved grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, a beloved sister, Mrs. Vivian D. Johnson, and her husband, Mr. John Johnson of Unadilla, Georgia. Her loving, devoted brothers, Mr. James Collier Sr. and his wife, Mrs. Retha Collier, and Mr. Larry Collier and his wife, Mrs. Mary Collier of Vienna, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive Miss Donna Lynn Collier Jones, age 59, of 301 West Poplar Street, Vienna, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Donna Lynn Collier Jones, age 59, will be held Tuesday, February 6th at 12 noon, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Charles Cobb Sr., pastor of the Free Providence Baptist Church and the Spring Hill Baptist Church, will officiate. Mr. William King Sr., age 73, of 601 North Hickory Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, February 1st at the Chris Regional Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Miss Tawana King of Macon, Georgia, Mrs. Shawana Davis and her husband, Mr. Martell Davis of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. William King Jr., Mr. Armaine White and his wife, Miss Kiera White, Mr. Johnny Churn and Mr. Ricky Churn, all of Macon, Georgia, Mr. Samuel Churn and his wife, Mrs. Yolanda Churn of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Antonio Hutchins of Florida, and Mr. Marcus Hutchins of Macon, Georgia. 17 beloved grandchildren, 29 great-grandchildren, a beloved sister-in-law, Mrs. Eddie Mae Cook of Cordele, Georgia, his beloved nieces, Miss Janice Hill and Miss Linda Morgan of Macon, Georgia, a host of other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive Mr. William King Sr., age 73, of 601 North Hickory Street, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William King Sr., age 73, will be held Friday, February 9th at 1 p.m. in the sanctuary of the Shady Grove Baptist Church in Cordele, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Kelvin E. Drake, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public visitation will be Thursday, February 8th from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104, of 620 Hill Street, Rochelle, Georgia, died Thursday, January 25th at Baptist Village in Waycross, Georgia. Survivors include 3 living and devoted daughters, Mrs. Georgia Eastland of Ewing, New Jersey, Ms. Louise Craig and her husband, Mr. James Craig of Waycross, Georgia, and Mrs. Mamie R. Cainton of Patterson, New Jersey. 8 beloved grandchildren, 7 great-grandchildren, 7 great-great-grandchildren, 2 great-great-great-grandchildren, and a host of nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104, of 620 Hill Street, Rochelle, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104, will be held Saturday, February 10th at 10 a.m. in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. Her pastor, the Reverend Gary Lucas, pastor of the New Travelers Home Missionary Baptist Church of Abbeville, Georgia, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Shady Grove Church Cemetery in Abbeville, Georgia. The public visitation will be Friday, February 9th from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Leon Walker, better known as Tay or Mr. Freeze, age 66, of 408 West 21st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Wednesday, January 31st at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mr. Marlon Reed Sr., Mr. Monte Reed Sr., and Miss Rebecca Walker of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. Antonio Shepard of Kennesaw, Georgia, 6 beloved grandchildren, a beloved sister, Mrs. Betty Smith, and her husband, Mr. Willie Smith of Lamont, Florida, a host of other relatives, and many sorrowing friends to include Miss Ann Ross, Miss Pernell Armstrong, Mrs. Alice Gaskin, and Miss Cassandra Reed of Cordele, Georgia, and Mr. Sanford Cross of Vienna, Georgia, survived. Mr. Leon Walker, better known as Tay or Mr. Freeze, age 66, of 408 West 21st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Leon Walker, age 66, will be held Saturday, February 10th, in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The burial will follow at the Evergreen Cemetery in Pinehurst, Georgia. The public visitation will be Friday, February 9th, from 1 until 5 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins, age 60, of 2515 Lewfield Circle, Atlanta, Georgia, died Friday, February 2nd at Emory University Hospital, Midtown, Atlanta, Georgia. Survivors include her loving and devoted husband, Mr. Arthur James Goins of Atlanta, Georgia, her loving and devoted children, Mr. Darius McEntee and Miss Donella J. Goins of Atlanta, Georgia. Her beloved and caring sibling, Mr. Leroy Adams, and his wife, Mrs. Doris Adams of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Mr. Avon Ames and his wife, Mrs. Marita Ames of Atlanta, Georgia, and Ms. Jeanette Toots of Atlanta, Georgia. A host of beloved nieces, nephews, cousins, other relatives, and many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins, age 60, of 2515 Lufield Circle, Atlanta, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins, age 60, will be announced at a later date, pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams funeral directors serving Cordele and Vienna are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that conclude our funeral notices for this morning. And as always, we do remind you concerning our pre-funeral arrangements planning available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, with packages available with a single pay, a 3-year pay, a 5-year pay, and a 10-year pay. So please stop by and talk with us concerning your pre-funeral arrangements needs. And also whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.
And now for announcements. The beautiful Zion Baptist Church Women in Red program will be held today, Sunday, February 4th. Minister Beverly Green will be the guest speaker. Reverend Lorinda Ray is the pastor. The Crisp County High School class of 1974 will meet on February the 10th at the Cordele Carnegie Library from 2 p.m. until 4 o'clock p.m. For more information, please contact Ms. Beryl Patrick at 229-947-0519. 229-947-0519. Ms. Antoinette Hurley at 229-815-1328. 229-815-1328, or Ms. Barbara Smith at 229-699-0249. 229-699-0249. The Black History Festival will be held on Saturday, February the 10th, beginning at 10:30 a.m. at the Blackshear Event Center. There will be a variety of food trucks, vendors, and the Historical Awards Committee walk-through display. This event is being hosted by Mrs. Cindy Williams and the Historical Awards Committee. Saturday, February the 10th, beginning at 10:30 a.m., the Black History Festival will be held at the Blackshear Place Event Center. Wilcox County Black History Celebration will be held on Saturday, February 24th at Montford Park in Abbeville, Georgia. The parade will begin at 11 o'clock a.m. For more information, please contact Mr. Joe Hill at 229-313-9710, 229-313-9710, or Mr. Mitchell Kemp at 229-457-8390, 229-457-8390. Brother Norris Mathis will celebrate his 17th gospel anniversary on Saturday, February 25th at 4 o'clock p.m. at the Mission of Hope Baptist Church, 401 West 1st Avenue in Cordele. Our program will be Bubba and the Violinaires of Chester, Georgia, the Chosen Voices of Montezuma, Georgia, the New Silver Stars of Macon, Georgia, Blessed and Highly Favored of Warner Robins, Georgia, and the Gospel Stars of Lilly, Georgia. For more information, please contact Brother Norris Mathis at 229-417-0034. 229-417-0034, or Minister Gloria W. Mathis at 229-947-1516, 229-947-1516. The Fort Valley State University Chris County Head Start is now accepting applications for the 2024-2025 school year. If you're interested, you may visit the Head Start Center at 1110 South 12th Street, Cordele, to complete an application. For more information, please contact Ms. Laquita Jenwright at 229-276-9880. 229-276-9880. The New Beulah Baptist Church of Lee County annual Men and Women's Day celebration will be today, Sunday, February the 4th at 10 o'clock a.m. Deacon Anthony Robinson of Warner Robins, Georgia, will be the guest speaker. The unity colors are red and white. Sister Rosemary Jones, Secretary. Deacon Bobby Robinson, Jr., Chairman of Deacons. Reverend Christopher Perry is the pastor. The Jerusalem Baptist Church of Ellaville, Georgia, will celebrate the second pastoral anniversary for Dr. Deanne and Reverend Johnny Holsey, Sunday, February the 11th at 2 o'clock p.m. Whole Truth International Ministries and Reverend George F. Muntz will be in charge of the service. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Dr. Deanne Holsey is the pastor. The Mount Abel Baptist Church of DeSoto, Georgia annual Men in Black and Women in Red program will be Saturday, February 17th at 3 o'clock p.m. The women's guest speaker will be Ms. Yolanda Robinson of the New Beulah Baptist Church. The men's guest speaker will be Deacon Seneca Harris of New Zion Baptist Church. The sermon will be delivered by Reverend Dr. Marvin Brown of the New Providence Baptist Church. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Reverend Samuel Stokes is the pastor. The McAfee Grove Baptist Church of Leesburg invites everyone to worship with them during their family nights on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock p.m., small class studies on Thursdays at 7 o'clock p.m., Sunday morning worship at 9 a.m. You may join them by calling 425-436-6341. 425-436-6341. The access code is 708058. Minister Tawanda Daniels, Secretary. Dr. Robert L. Morgan, Sr. is the pastor. The Mount Moriah Baptist Church of Unadilla first pastor anniversary for Pastor Reverend Edward Lester will be Sunday, today, February 4th at 1:30 p.m. Pastor Gary Lucas, pastor of the Springfield Baptist Church and the New Travelers Home Baptist Church, will be the guest speaker. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Reverend Edward Lester is the pastor. The St. Mark Baptist Church of Vienna invites everyone to join them as they welcome their new pastor, Reverend James E. Jordan. Today, services will begin at 2 o'clock p.m. Sister Rudy Wilfork is the secretary. Deacon Benny Howard is the chairman of deacons. Reverend James E. Jordan Sr. is the pastor. The Pleasant Hill Baptist Church of Bonneville annual Family and Friends Day service will be today, Sunday, February the 4th at 11 o'clock a.m. And please join them as they will also be observing Black history during this time as well. Sister Gloria Lucas is the reporter. Deacon Jimmy Redding is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Rodney Duncan is the pastor. The Holly Grove Baptist Church annual Family and Friends Day will be on Sunday, February the 11th at 11 o'clock a.m. Everyone is cordially invited to attend. Lunch will be served. Deacon Robert Woodson Jr., chairman of deacons. Reverend W.G. Grover is the pastor. Everyone has a cordial invitation to worship at the Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church today. Sunday school begins at 9 o'clock a.m., worship service at 9:30 a.m. Mother Mary Henderson, church mother. Deacon Arthur L. Parker, chairman of deacons. Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The Mount Zion Baptist Church conference call scheduled Sunday morning at 10 o'clock a.m., prayer Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock noon. Bible studies held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Deacon Joe Wedges, chairman of deacons. Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. Everyone is cordially invited to worship at the Gethsemane Baptist Church today. Worship service begins at 10:30 a.m. Deacon Johnny Wilson, chairman of deacons. Reverend Cecil Straughter is the pastor. The New Oak Grove Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them each Sunday for Sunday school at 9:15 a.m., worship service at 10 o'clock a.m. Face covering is required. Deacon Alonzo Jones, chairman of deacons. Reverend W.W. Wilson is the pastor. Everyone is cordially invited to worship at the Greater Gum Creek Baptist Church during their worship service each first, second, third, and fourth Sundays beginning at 10:30 a.m. Mother Norma Solomon is the church mother. Deacon Zachary Fields, chairman of deacons. Reverend Joseph Hagerbrook is the pastor. You're cordially invited to worship with the Mount Calvary Baptist Church today. Sunday school begins at 9:45 a.m. Worship service at 10:45 a.m. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Deacon Leon Spears, chairman of deacons. Reverend Isaac H. Owens is the pastor. That concludes our announcements for this morning.
And now for dedication. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following: in loving memory of Mrs. Daisy Bell Jones, who departed this life January 27, 2007. Dedication requested by her beloved grandchildren, Deaconess President Cassandra Jackson, Miss Michelle West, and Mr. Barry Jones, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Norma Edward Jones, better known as Polly, who departed this life January 28, 1966. Dedication requested by her children, grandchildren, her brothers, Mr. Walter Edwards and Mr. Billy Wayne Edwards, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Annie Mae Odom, who departed this life January 28, 2004. Dedication requested by our children, Homer, Inez, Mary Alice, Joe, Mary, Mandy, and Anthony. Her beloved grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the entire family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Deacon Willie James Glenn, who departed this life January 28, 2004. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, Ms. Molly Glenn, the children, grandchildren, and the entire Glenn family. Precious memory lingers still. In loving memory of our beloved Mrs. Elizabeth Graham, better known as Big Mom, who would have celebrated her birthday February 1st. Dedication requested by our beloved daughter, Deaconess Martha A. Cross, her grandchildren, and the entire family and the members of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Baptist Church. And we pause and remember the life and service of Mrs. Elizabeth Graham, better known as Big Mom. In loving memory of Sergeant Specialist Alvin Glenn, who departed this life February 1st, 2022. Dedication requested by his wife, Miss Jennifer Glenn, the children, grandchildren, and the entire Glenn family, gone but not forgotten. In loving memory of Mrs. Mary Lois Williams, who departed this life February, of Deacon Benny Daniels Sr., who departed this life February 3rd, 1994. Dedication requested by the Daniels family. In loving memory of Mr. Samuel Lee Epps, who departed this life February 4th, 2006. Dedication requested by the Lawton and Epps family. In loving memory of Mrs. Dora Kingston, who would have celebrated her birthday February 4th. Dedication requested by Mr. Dewey Jones and Mr. Robert Jones. In loving memory of Mr. Reem William Davis, who departed this life February 1st, 1998. And would have celebrated a birthday February 5th. Dedication requested by Mrs. Mary Frances Davis. In loving memory of Mr. Broadus Lamar, who would have celebrated his birthday February 5th. Dedication requested by the Lamar family. In loving memory of Mr. Bernie Jackson, who would have celebrated his birthday February 5th. Dedication requested by his beloved family. In loving memory of Mrs. Annie Mae Coffin, who would have celebrated her birthday February 5th. Dedication requested by her beloved family and the members of the Greater Morris Tabernacle Baptist Church. In loving memory of Deacon Arthur Jackson, who departed this life February 6th. Dedication requested by his beloved wife, Deaconess President Cassandra Jackson, his daughter Shamika Clark, Miss Shanteria Jackson, and Miss Sharita Cooper, and the grandchildren and the entire family. In loving memory of Mrs. Jessie Lee Glenn, who departed this life January 16, 2002. Dedication requested by Joanne, Charles, and Calvin. Precious memory lingers still. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to the following. Happy birthday to Miss Naisha Davis, who celebrated her birthday Thursday, February 3rd, Dedication requested by Mrs. Mary Frances Davis. Happy birthday to Mr. Winford Jones II, who celebrated his birthday Saturday, February 3rd. Happy birthday to Mr. Ladarius Davis, who is celebrating his birthday today, February 4th. Happy birthday to Mrs. Pernell Armstrong, who is celebrating her birthday today, February 4th. Happy birthday to Miss Esther Johnson, who will celebrate her birthday Monday, February 5th. Happy birthday to Mrs. Minnie Annie Jones, who will celebrate her birthday Monday, February 5th. And special birthday wishes goes out to our beloved 104th birthday to Mother Leela Mae Smith, better known as Miss Honey, who is celebrating her birthday today, 104th birthday today, February the 4th. Dedication requested by her children, Barbara, Elaine, Matthew, Otis Jr., and Ivory, her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the entire family, and the members of the Zion Hope Baptist Church in Winona, Georgia, where she serves as mother of the church. Happy 104th birthday today to our beloved Mother Leela Mae Smith, better known as Miss Honey. God bless you. It is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. Mother Mae Frances Harold Maynard, age 98, of 1015 7 Springs Drive, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 30th at her residence in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Mae Frances Harold Maynard, age 98, will be held today, Sunday, February 4th, at 1 p.m. in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Reverend Ivory Joe Carbon will officiate. The eulogy will be delivered by the Reverend Jeff Wilson. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Ms. Donna Lynn Collier Jones, age 59, of 301 West Poplar Street, Vienna, Georgia, died Tuesday, January 30th. The funeral service for Ms. Donna Lynn Collier Jones, age 59, will be held Tuesday, February 6th at 12 noon, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. The Reverend Charles Cobb Sr. will officiate. Mr. William King Sr., age 73, of 601 North Hickory Street, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, February 1st at the Chris Regional Nursing and Rehabilitation Center in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. William King Sr. will be held Friday, February 9th at 1 p.m. in the sanctuary of the Shady Grove Baptist Church in Cordele, Georgia. The pastor, Reverend Kelvin E. Drake, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104, of 620 Hill Street, Rochelle, Georgia, died Thursday, January 25th at Baptist Village in Waycross, Georgia. The funeral service for Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104, will be held Saturday, February 10th at 10 a.m. in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Her pastor, Reverend Gary Lucas, will officiate. The burial will follow at the Shady Grove Baptist Church Cemetery in Abbeville, Georgia. Mr. Leon Walker, better known as Tay or Mr. Freeze, age 66, of 408 West 21st Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Wednesday, January 31st at the Chris Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Leon Walker, age 66, will be held Saturday, February 10th in the chapel of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home in Cordele, Georgia. The burial will follow at the Evergreen Cemetery in Pinehurst, Georgia. Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins, age 60, of 2515 Lewfield Circle, Atlanta, Georgia, died Friday, February 2nd at Emory University Hospital, Midtown, Atlanta, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins will be announced at a later date pending the completion of the arrangements. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors, serving Cordele and Vienna, are in charge of each of these arrangements during this week. Our selection this morning is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones were laid to rest during the past week. The family of Minister Clara Lee Fort Collier of Vienna, Georgia. The family of beloved church mother, Mother Lucinda Barrett Ray of Cordele, Georgia. The family of United States Army Staff Sergeant Thomas William McRae, Jr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Bobby Lee Foster of Americus, Georgia. The family of Miss Christine Gulligent Leggett of Byronville, Georgia. The family of Mrs. S.M.A. Henderson Gay of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Glenn Eli Brown of Americus, Georgia. This election is dedicated to the bereaved families whose loved ones will be laid to rest during this week. The family of Mother Mae Frances Harold Maynor of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Miss Donna Lynn Collier Jones of Vienna, Georgia. The family of Mr. William King Sr. of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mother Elnora M. McBurrows, age 104 of Rochelle, Georgia. The family of Mr. Leon Walker of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Barbara Faye McEntee Goins of Atlanta, Georgia. Our selection this morning is dedicated to all of the sick and shut-in, to all patients in the local and surrounding hospitals, nursing homes, and rehabilitation centers, to our beloved ministers and their devoted family members, to all retired educators, to the men and women serving in armed forces, both stateside and abroad, to all veterans, and to everyone who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. It's a pleasure for us to bring it to you. Our program goes out in memory of our past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams, to my wife, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, to my son, Jai Wilkerson Parker. This election goes out to each and every one who listens to our program on each Sunday morning. God bless you on this first Sunday in February 2024. God bless you.
Thank you for joining us this morning. We hope you've enjoyed our program. Tune in again on next Sunday morning. In your time of need, contact the competent, capable, and dependable staff at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home.